Hey, how you doing, Dennis? Looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. You can have someone back here if you want. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our press conference today. My name is John Huber. I'm the United States Attorney for the District of Utah. I'd like to introduce a few of our partners here today, and a number of them will offer some brief oral remarks as well. At the conclusion of our formal press conference, we'll offer to you as a courtesy any one-on-one questions that you'd like to approach anyone about, and do that as far as you're interested. We thank the Unified Police Department and the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Department for hosting us today in a COVID-friendly outdoor environment on a beautiful autumn day in the state of Utah. I'd like to introduce our ATF Assistant Special Agent in Charge, housed here in Utah, Brad Engelbert. He'll follow my remarks. Then the United States Marshal, presidentially appointed and Senate confirmed, Matt Harris. Our State Bureau of Investigations, SBI Chief Brian Redd. We do thank the presence of UPD Deputy Chief Chris Omby. He will yield his remarks to our Metro Gangs Unit, Salt Lake Area Metro Gangs Unit, Lieutenant Mike Schoenfeld, who will take up the tally, but before him, we'll have our Ogden Police Department Deputy Chief Eric Young offer a few remarks, as this case touches his community and area as well. Today we're going to talk about organized crime in the state of Utah. Yes, that's right, there is organized crime in the state of Utah. Like elsewhere throughout our nation, Utah has a huge demand for illicit drugs. It's just a constant, endless demand for it. It's an insatiable appetite for illicit drugs, and of all variety. Marijuana is certainly in that list. Some people think it's passé to say marijuana is a gateway drug. That's the elephant in the room. It clearly is, based on my 25 plus years of experience and recognizing and observing and talking to actual victims of overdoses. The common thread in many of those stories is that it started with marijuana. But of course we know that in Utah we have an issue with pain pills, fake pain pills, and heroin. And the king of all drugs by quantity and probably impact upon our communities is methamphetamine. And those are the drugs that are at play in Utah. Now, if you're talking about market forces and just the natural economics of things, with a huge demand for such illicit substances, and I got to tell you, it's one of the big Achilles heels for American society, is our addiction to substances. It causes so much heartache, so much pain. It's the backdrop to so many crimes, violence in the home and violence on our streets. Those market forces, that tremendous demand, leads to those who would profit from it. The sellers. There's an endless number of sellers who want to provide these drugs to the community. It comes at a low cost, it's easily attainable, and the substances seem to get cheaper and more powerful as time goes on. All of this, these dynamics, this counterculture in Utah and throughout the United States has led to a complex and pervasive criminal underworld. More pervasive and dangerous than most Utahns could imagine. Most of those drugs that I counted off are sourced from cartels operating freely without abandon in Mexico and Central America. Mexican drug cartels are the source of an endless supply of cheap methamphetamine, heroin, and now that most dangerous substance, fentanyl. It literally streams across the porous southwest border of our nation. It's not a political issue, it's reality. Beyond the tragic addictions this underworld spawns, other things. It spawns violence, indebtedness, firearms trafficking, gun crime, extortion, property crime, and just common thuggery on our streets and neighborhoods. So, that's kind of a dark picture. Against this backdrop of a gothic underworld, what do we do about it? Well, we're not policymakers. The partners and I standing here, we're not policymakers, we're law enforcers. And that's the role that we play. So when we ask ourselves the question, what can we do about it? The answer is, and this is a mantra of mine, well, we have to do something. And that's what we've done here today. During my tenure as the United States Attorney here in Utah, over 5 years now, spanning 2 presidential administrations, we have not waited for the criminals to do something before we do something. We have taken the game to them. It's on our terms, not theirs. We use intelligence and strategic operations to target and take down groups at a time. Not one-off people at a time, but groups at a time. And during my tenure, with partners like this, we have targeted investigations and takedowns of over 35 criminal organizations, organized crime in Utah. Of those groups, 35 groups, to date, we are nearing federal convictions for, well, nearly 300 individuals who operate or have operated, past tense, thank you very much, past tense, in organized crime rings. Today, we gather to announce to the community our most recent takedown involving white supremacy gangs in Utah. We announced charges and arrests of 21 documented gang members and their associates. You have a press release that denotes the particular gangs, but we're talking about the classics: SAC, SAW, and this new one, to me anyway, NET. 15 federal indictments unsealed this morning in federal court in Salt Lake City, the results of a 16-month investigation. There are cynics in our community, believe it or not, tongue-in-cheek, of course, but there are cynics who would say, oh, this is just response to the political debate that's going on in this election season. No, 16 months of investment here by law enforcement. And let me take a side note there, just on behalf of my partners, the men and women of law enforcement in Utah. This is what law enforcement does for us, not the caricature of a juvenile potshot political cartoon in a newspaper. This is what they do. This is what the role that they play in the white supremacy issue in Utah. So when we talk about the soldiers of the Aryan culture, soldiers of Aryan culture at SAC, unfortunately, this is a Utah product. There are many things to be proud of in Utah, from our snow, beautiful mountains, national parks, white supremacy gangs. It's one of ours. We own it, and we're not proud of it. Soldiers of Aryan culture started in the 1990s in the Utah State Prison at the point of the mountain. Since then, it has grown in influence and pervasiveness to where now it is in prison systems throughout the United States. Very unfortunate export of Utah. We're able to do these operations with some frequency now. And where in the past, 10 years or so ago, we're talking about an operation like this occurring every couple of years at the most frequency. Now we do operations like this 6 to 8 times a year because of the professionalism Utah law enforcement, our commitment to our communities, and the tools that we have. The tools that we have used in this case, the United States Code, it's a lot of books, big books. But the number of tools that I have in federal law enforcement are fairly limited, but they're very effective. The tools that we have used here to take down 21 gang members and their associates are drug trafficking statutes and gun crime statutes. So I'm going to invite our partners to come up and offer some brief remarks, but we look forward to litigating these cases with the elite squad of prosecutors that we have developed in the state of Utah. Mark Vincent is one of them here. I have a couple other prosecutors here. One of our prosecutors in this elite squad has been recruited to the national level on an elite team nationally in Washington, D.C. to dismantle the MS-13 gang. Now, we don't have that problem in Utah, fortunately, as of yet, but he's been recruited because of our excellent reputation here in Utah to go serve at the national level. So we look forward to prosecuting these cases and seeking just outcomes in Utah's federal court. I'll ask Assistant Special Agent in Charge Engelbert to come up and start our series of speakers.
Thank you, John. Good afternoon. My name is Brad Engelbert. I'm the Assistant Special Agent in Charge for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, or ATF, here in Salt Lake City. Today's announcement is a culmination of a year-long investigation into members of the Soldiers of Aryan Culture and Silent Aryan Warriors, two associated white supremacist gangs based here in Utah. Many of the individuals charged and arrested in this investigation have lengthy criminal records, including violent offenses, up to and including convictions for homicide. As law enforcement, it is our first priority to get these chronic offenders off the streets. This was a collaborative investigation between ATF, the Metro Gang Unit, the Ogden Gang Unit, the Weber Morgan Narcotics Strike Force, the West Valley City Street Crimes Unit, the State Bureau of Investigation, and the United States Marshals, obviously including Mr. Huber and the United States Attorney's Office. It is through these collaborative efforts that law enforcement is most effective, and I thank each of these agencies for their commitment to this investigation. Combating violent crime is a core value within ATF's mission, and dismantling criminal gangs such as these will undoubtedly make our community safer. Marshall, would you like to come up?
Sure. Good afternoon. My name is Matt Harris. I'm the United States Marshal for the District of Utah. We participated in this investigation because these targets were violent, they're criminals, and they're the worst in our communities. If the United States Marshal Service Task Force is involved, it's because these people are a threat to our communities. The way we keep our communities safe and to keep Utah safe is to continue the relationships that federal agencies have with our state and local partners. We need to continue to keep crime low, and we need to continue to work together. And without those relationships, you can guarantee you'll see a spike in violent crime. Like I said, our task force has arrested nearly 1,500 violent fugitives in Utah in the last 18 months. And that's a huge number. So we do have our problems here in Utah. And we've got a lot of crime here in Utah. But we have the most dedicated agencies from Ogden down here to Salt Lake, West Valley, DPS, and I'm proud to have been part of this investigation. I'm proud to be a part of this team, and I just want to yield the rest of my time to our partners, but thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Redd. I'm the Chief of the State Bureau of Investigation, which falls under the Utah Department of Public Safety. Thank you for being here today. I want to thank the partners behind me for this investigation. We know that crime, organized crime, does not limit itself to one community. They operate across our state and even nationally. And so these partnerships become key in keeping our communities safe. Under the Department of Public Safety is the Statewide Information and Analysis Center. One of the benefits of these types of operations is we learn more and more about how our organized crime works here in Utah, and our criminal analysts are able to take information from these operations and then analyze it and send it back out to our law enforcement partners so we can continue to understand the organized criminal networks that are working here in our state. So we appreciate our partners. I think this operation today sends the message that we will not tolerate, violent organizations here in our state who are drug trafficking, who are trafficking in weapons, who are committing violence, and who carry extremist ideology. We don't want that in our state, and so we appreciate all of those line-level investigators, criminal analysts, prosecutors who are doing so much to keep us all safe. Thank you.
Afternoon, folks. My name is Eric Young. I'm the Deputy Chief of Police in Ogden, Utah. I just want to take a second to speak a little bit on behalf of local law enforcement. And I want to start by saying that federal law enforcement efforts are critical in the role of local law enforcement. Ogden City has long embraced our partnerships with federal law enforcement in the form of the Northern Utah Criminal Apprehension Team, the Project Safe Neighborhoods program, and now, as you see, a great partnership with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. These partnerships and these types of investigations make a difference in all of our neighborhoods. They take people off the streets that are making our neighborhoods unsafe and unstable. I want to thank John Huber for his leadership in guiding federal investigations and federal prosecutions in the state of Utah. I think we are setting the bar across the country for local and federal partnerships in investigations in law enforcement. The way we're seeing those effects in our community, in Ogden, is a record-setting drop in crime. Over the past 3 years, we've had a phenomenal drop in Part 1 crimes to the level of 28% drop in Part 1 crimes in the last 3 years. Much of that is due to our partnerships with these great individuals you see behind me. So I thank them, and I thank all of you for being here today.
My name is Mike Schoenfeld. I am the director of the Salt Lake Area Gang Project, the Metro Gang Unit here in Salt Lake County. You've heard all of our speakers today talk about partnerships, and I'm going to again talk about our partnerships with everybody you see here behind me. The Salt Lake Area Gang Project is proud to once again be an investigative asset to our local, state, federal law enforcement and prosecution partners regarding gang violence and criminal activity. Our partnerships are the most important part of our mission, and we're proud to call all of these agencies behind me and many others across the state of Utah and the western region our partners and our friends. Our expertise in national and local gangs and gang investigations make our detectives vital to the success of long-term cases like this one. The Salt Lake Area Gang Project receives calls for assistance from across the state of Utah and the western region daily, and we're always happy to be an asset regarding gang violence and gang intelligence to our law enforcement and prosecution partners. Cases like this one take a lot of preparation, a lot of planning and coordination from all the agencies and some of the best investigators in this region. We're all involved in this case from multiple agencies. SAC and SAW are highly volatile, dangerous criminal enterprises involving white supremacy groups, committing a range of crimes from identity theft to violent aggravated offenses. These gangs have their roots right here in the Utah prison system. It's not something to be proud of, but they also have very strong ties nationwide to other violent white supremacy groups. This case demonstrates their potential for violence and their willingness to provide narcotics and dangerous weapons to the streets of all the cities across the Wasatch Front. Our task force detectives and the agencies and task forces with us here today stand ready to address this level of disregard for public safety all day, every day. This case demonstrates, again, the need for coordinated law enforcement efforts to address violence, narcotics, and gang crime in the valley, the region, and the state. The men and women of the Salt Lake Area Gang Project and our partner agencies will always investigate and prosecute those who distribute narcotics and visit violence on our citizens, our neighbors, and our communities. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That'll conclude our formal conference, and happy to talk to you one-on-one. Not the Reuben Chop House, right?